I'm Brendan Wyatt with the Voice of C38. We are in the bones of Dick's Sporting Goods Park, about to get some exclusive access with Brian Crookham. Come on.
Guys, thanks for joining us. We're joined here by Brian Crookham, Senior Director of Soccer Development and also the General Manager for the Colorado Spring Switchbacks.
Okay, jumping right in, Director of Soccer Development. Let's talk about the kids. Cole Bassett, just last year alone, not even Cole Bassett, but last year alone, Cole Bassett was named Team of the Week twice, got a call up to the U19s. Sam Vines got a call up to the U20s, and then the U12s also won the championship in Florida. The fans kind of feel like MLS focuses more on what's come out of Dallas and the Red Bulls. What's your perspective on how MLS showcases the youth development, especially coming out of Colorado?
It's probably not really my worry on how they market it. I mean, in the end, the work that our staff's doing every day isn't affected by press releases or web articles or anything like that. The work they do every day is going to be the same no matter what. So I think we just focus on that. I think we focus on providing a product that will land in our first team and make our first team better, and preparing those guys for when they step in that stadium and the lights come on and being able to contribute. And you mentioned Cole and you mentioned Sammy and some of those guys. They're prepared when they step on the field, and that's all we care about.
Okay, that's good stuff. We did kind of also just mention some of the call-ups. Not on the Rapids roster, Anthony Munoz, a homegrown player, also got a contract. Could there be a homegrown signing in the future?
I will guarantee you there's going to be homegrown signings in the future. I will not guarantee who that homegrown signing will be. And to be honest with you, a lot of the national team call-ups don't necessarily correlate with homegrown signings. You know, number one, I think sometimes the U.S. soccer is a little reactive to players that aren't in. You talked about major markets in the last question. For us, sometimes our guys don't get called in. Cole Bassett's never been in a national team, and all of a sudden he gets called in. We had the same thing with Shane O'Neill and some of those guys in the past, where until people came and digged and then realized, wow, these guys are going to play for the first team, they haven't been in national teams. So it doesn't really matter what order the process is. We're developing players for our first team. The national team stuff will come later on, and we're very proud of those guys to get call-ups, but that's not necessarily the indicator of a player playing in our first team in the future.
Yeah, and you kind of alluded to it there. It's kind of it's a really neat, kind of a cool thing to see is, you know, the amount of young kids, especially for kids in Colorado to see. There's a pattern now of these DA kids coming through and being signed to the first team. How do you view that? Is that just maybe a function of the front office taking more of that position, or is it the coaching staff deeming that more important, or is it just maybe a situation where the talent pool is starting to mature to that level?
I think it's a little bit of everything. I think the first priority was to make sure the pathway was available to these kids and that we were getting the proper information in there. The better we do with providing talent into that pathway, so whether that be coming from our younger age groups that we work with or kids like Cole Bassett, who was at another very good youth club in our community at Colorado Rush, the better job we do of getting those guys into the pipeline, the better the product at the end is going to be. But on top of that, we've got an ownership group that's very committed to youth development and is invested in it, has helped us expand what we're able to do with it, not only from an age group perspective, but from a support perspective. What we do in sports science, what we do in some other areas, in trying to look at the entire athlete as part of this process is very important. And then you mentioned it as well, we've got a first team staff that believes in young players as well. They proved that by putting Cole Bassett on the field for us at the end of the year. Sam Vines got time. You know, it's a first year. We're going into year 2 of the staff, but we know that they're comfortable playing young players. And you know, Porg says it all the time. You know, if we sign a player on our first team roster, we will be confident enough to play him at some point as the opportunity becomes available. And so I think the answer is all of the above.
Yeah.
And you mentioned just kind of we're going on the second year with this coaching staff, but you've been here a lot longer, and your hand with the development, you've been there through the dissolving of the Reserve League to the affiliation in Charlotte, and now with the Springs. You mentioned the pipeline bit. Is anything tactically changed on and off the field with all of the different ways that we can kind of get the I guess I'm losing my words, the experience out there for the depth?
The tactic itself doesn't change. To have a complete pathway is absolutely critical. So knowing that when a player comes in, we have the right environment for them at every stage of their development, whether that's playing with their own age group in the under 16s to gain knowledge, gain confidence, or whether it's being able to stretch them because they're doing well and moving up an age group or into, you mentioned the Reserve League or Charlotte, whatever that is. If we don't have that piece in our system currently, we've got to partner to get it. At one point, we created the under-23s because that gave us a great bridge when we didn't have an on-site USL piece to connect to. But we also knew that USL was important, and the Charlotte relationship was very good for us and very good for some of our players. We then felt like we had everything in one place by being able to move to Colorado Springs. So I don't think the tactics of how we go about it have changed. I think maybe the daily environment and bringing that closer to home is what's changed, and making sure that we get the better we are at all those little pieces and the more control we have over those pieces, the cleaner the pathway is, and the closer we are to achieving what we want to achieve.
You mentioned also the U23s that kind of went away, and some colleges don't necessarily like to have players on their roster with professional experience. Can academy kids play in the Springs?
Absolutely. So that's one major advantage to what we're doing right now. We did occasionally send academy kids out to Charlotte. It's a little more logistically challenging to send a 16 or a 17-year-old on a 3-hour flight to go spend time away from home. It's a heck of a lot easier for us now to move that down the highway 70 miles and give them that exposure. So I think you'll see a lot more of that, both from a training and a competition standpoint. MLS, you can't play academy players in official games. In USL, you can. So we can have them sign an academy player contract. They can play in there. If you look in the past, Kainoa likewise. Armando Munoz was mentioned earlier, and Sebastian Anderson. They were both down in Charlotte earlier in the year or last fall, and were able to play for the Independents. So we'll be looking to do more of that, and it obviously quite easier to do that with the Colorado Springs relationship.
Good segue in. Let's kind of talk about your newest role. I guess would be as the kind of a cool step for you. I mean, you're now the general manager of the Colorado Switchbacks. Mm-hmm. Can you kind of give us an idea of what your role entails? And I'm just kind of curious, what attracted you to that you jumped in and said, yeah, this is a great opportunity?
Yeah, I think it's been a natural evolution for me in the way it's gone here. I've spent a lot of time on the field with a lot of players, whether it be youth players or professional players, over the last 12 years that I've been a part of the organization. As that's developed, I think the relationships with coaches, with agents, with the people that you have to interact with in that role I've been exposed to all that, and like any player or any coach that kind of goes through their career path, I've been able to see what I'm a good fit for, maybe what I'm not a good fit for, and how that has evolved. And so now with my role there, I'm the general manager, and it's a very soccer-focused general manager position. I'm not, in a business sense, not worried about season tickets, and I'm not worried about a lot of those things. I'm worried about trying to help the Switchbacks put the best possible product on the field. Part of that product will involve and a big part of that product will involve Colorado Rapids players that support that exact same mission. But on top of that, bringing the connections and the things that we've had through scouting and through some of the other roles that I've played in the organization, and trying to help build a Switchbacks team that's going to be competitive in USL Championship.
So you're going to be working a lot, obviously really close hand in hand with guys like Steve Tritchu and Wolde and the rest of the staff there, I would imagine.
It's excellent relationship for us. Obviously, Trey and Woldy both played for the club. Trey Harrington, who's the goalkeeper coach down there, has Trey was all the way back to the Colorado Foxes, and so I've had long-term relationships with all of those guys. I think having somebody in a soccer general manager role for those guys is a big help, because it takes some of the load off them, and trying to build rosters, trying to manage the off-the-field stuff while still trying to put together a competitive team is a difficult process. And so having another hand there, and I got to tell you, the more I know, the more I realize what a good job they've done over the last 4 years being competitive down there. Oh, cool. And so I think, hopefully I can be a helping hand to those guys, and in the end, help their focus shift solely to what the product is on the field, and we'll try to bring together resources to help them be successful there.
You're all of a sudden you're our inside man for the Switchbacks, so congratulations on that too. Not to give too much away, I know it's early, but can you maybe give us your view, or give us an idea of what we can expect from the team on the field, and how you feel about where they're going to be going this year?
Yeah, we're a couple days into preseason down there, and I think the reviews are very positive at this point, and it's not an easy process. Given our relationship to the way we put the team together from a Colorado Rapids standpoint, that means that we've got players that aren't there yet, that they're planning for players that aren't in their sight. We had a player like Jordan Schweitzer from the Switchbacks roster that joined us in Florida for preseason. So we may have done more to take away from their preparation than to help their preparation over the last couple of days, but through the first couple of days there, I think it's very clear that the group there is very focused. Some of the players that we've been able to bring in to this point, and we've signed 12 of the 14 USL contracted players that we're going to sign. I think we're very happy with those 12 players. I think we feel like in a lot of areas we've been able to upgrade and create not only a higher level of talent, but a competitive group of guys. I think the feedback that we're getting from the staff right now is the way that preseason has started is ahead of where they've been in the past, and part of that is the attitude and the desire to be unbelievably competitive every day, and that's what it's going to take for that group to be competitive and get themselves in a position that, every Saturday it's their job to compete to try to win on the weekend, and if you do that, then you give yourself a chance to get in the playoffs.
There's a handful of games at home down there in the Springs that are not, or that are happening when there aren't really games for the Rapids. Mm-hmm. How fortunate did you feel that the schedule kind of played in your favor with that?
It's created some opportunity. We'd actually love to have more of that opportunity. I think the more separation there is, the more we can utilize the relationship to help both parties. There are opportunities in the schedule, and you will see us take advantage of that throughout our player pool. We're going to take a very long-term view to some players that we loan down there. They'll live down there, they'll train down there every day, and they'll be a part of the daily environment there. We will have some other more seasoned players who need the experience but won't be down there full time that you'll see go down there on a weekly basis. Obviously, the bigger the difference in the schedule, the more likely we are to be able to utilize players from the Rapids with the Switchbacks. So it's going to be a management thing on a daily basis. We're planning ahead as far as the longer term loans, but the shorter term loans we're going to have to communicate well, and that's an ongoing thing. And the coaching staff has been tremendous here in letting us in on their insights and keeping up to date on it. And we work hand in hand every single day to make sure that we're working together to get it right on both ends, because every decision here affects a decision there. It's a fun product. You see a lot of talented players, some that are going to be unbelievably good pros and be USL veterans for a long time, and some that are going to end up using that as a springboard to MLS. And so I think it's a good product to watch.
You called it here first, everybody. Just say it. Because we have talked about all of the hands of soccer that your two hands have been in over the past decade with the Rapids. But Oklahoma hasn't gone without noticing that. So you have been inducted into the Soccer Association Hall of Fame. Do you feel famous at all?
No, I do not feel famous. Look, that was a great honor. It speaks to a part of my career. I've been in Colorado now for 25 years, and so to be honored for something that far along, in my past is it's pretty good. Clearly they were desperate at this point, but I honestly enjoyed my time there, both as a player and as a coach, and I think a lot of the foundation that are brought forward to the things that I've done here at the college and the professional level clearly were not only introduced but honed in my experiences there. So a lot of people to thank in that process, and I think my induction in that sense is probably just more of a validation of the pathway available to people versus something that was unbelievably outstanding on my part. It's look, same thing we talked about with our players earlier in pathways and surrounding the pathway with good people and good information. I had the same advantage, and all the way back to the Tulsa Roughneck days at NASL, same influences that these kids have today. And once again, probably more recognition of that path and the people that support that pathway than the individual that got inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
And who'd have thunk it? Thanks, Brian, for your time.
You bet.